What's up, guys? Patrick Moran from the Moran-Alytics Podcast here, doing our first, audio content exclusive for this YouTube channel. I've been saying on the actual podcast for quite a while now that we were going to start, in addition to just posting highlight clips from our show on our YouTube channel, that we would start doing some audio exclusive content. With the NFL draft so close now that you could taste it, I figured there's no time better than right now to get this started, especially since the NFL draft first round will be Thursday night. And by the time the next Moran-Alytics podcast comes out on Friday morning, the first round will be over. Before I get going on this too, by the way, if you could just go below, click that subscribe button, that little bell next to it. You'll get these videos as soon as they come out. I've gotten a fair amount of questions from fans on Twitter, Facebook, email, etc., wanting to know what would be the worst case scenario for the Buffalo Bills when they get on the clock on Thursday night with that ninth pick. I think that's a really, really good question. Like any draft, every year, there's guys that you're on their train early and then you come off and then you're on the next guy and so on and so forth. Early in the process, it sure seemed like DK Metcalf would be a perfect pick for the Bills. That kind of went away and it became all about Ed Oliver. That's still the case to some degree, but there's been some questionable reports, some red flags about Ed Oliver concerning his character, concerning his work ethic, how he takes plays off, sometimes games. In fact, I just had Greg Gabriel, former longtime NFL scout, on my podcast on Tuesday, and he basically said a bunch of what I just reiterated to you. That could be scary for some teams, and maybe Buffalo's one of them. I don't know. It also might be a moot point because there's also a lot of reports out there that he may go as high as number 3 to the Jets, so he might not even be there. Of course, that got me thinking, what would happen in the worst Buffalo Bills draft scenario case where all the guys that we have tied into the Buffalo Bills over the last few weeks, Ed Oliver, TJ Hawkinson, Jonah Williams, what if these guys are all gone? And what happens if a guy or two that we might be quietly hoping falls back to the Bills at 9? What happens if none of that happens? In this scenario, and let's say the Bills wanted to move down, but they couldn't in the draft, who would be that best player left for them to go out and get at 9? I figured this would be a good exercise and a chance for me to play Debbie Downer here, and let's paint what we'll call the worst case scenario for the Buffalo Bills on Thursday night. What would happen with those top 8 picks before they're on the clock? And I want to be clear, I am not in any way, shape, or form offering predictions right now on every guy that's going to go before the Bills are on the clock at 9. That's not what I'm doing at all. I am simply painting a worst case scenario. Whether you're Brandon Beane and the Bills staff in that war room, whether you're a Bills fan around the globe watching the draft, hoping for things to fall your way for a certain player, I think that this is the worst case scenario, and I'm going to lay it out right now. Kyler Murray, Nick Bosa, I'm not going to spend any time on them. I never for a second thought that the Bills would end up with either of them. They don't need Murray, and they're not going to get Bosa. So forget about them. Let's start at 3. The Jets I've always thought they're going to take Quinnen Williams. Josh Allen's in the mix, and reportedly Ed Oliver is too. One of those 3 guys are going to go at 3. Do we really need to have a long discussion who? No, because it doesn't matter. Let's say Quinnen Williams. Raiders are on the clock at 4. They could do something big. I mean, Mike Mayock did send his scouting staff home last week. They're trying to protect something. Maybe they're going to be in play to move up and get Kyler Murray. Who knows? But that 4th pick, whoever makes it, it's going to be Josh Allen or Ed Oliver, especially if Quinnen Williams goes at 3. Let's just say, I'll tell you what, let's say it's Ed Oliver. No, let's say it's Josh Allen. That sounds a little more likely for me with the Raiders at 4. Josh Allen goes 4. Tampa's on the clock at 5. In a perfect world for the Bills, if this was a best case scenario, they'd go linebacker. Devin White is a great linebacker. He'd be a great fit in Tampa. He can replace Quan Alexander. That'd be a good pick for them. But we're not doing that. We're doing the worst case scenario. Let's say they pass on Devin White, and they pass on Devin Bush as well, and they go and they take Ed Oliver. Could happen. Gerald McCoy might be traded. Hell, he might be traded before you hear this video. If not during the draft, after the draft, at some point. I could see Ed Oliver getting picked for sure. Or maybe if Oliver goes to the Raiders at 4, Josh Allen would definitely be in play to go to Tampa. In fact, I'd almost be willing to bet that he would end up at Tampa at 5. So any way you look at it, Quinnen Williams, Josh Allen, Ed Oliver, they go 3 through 5. Now you got the Giants on the clock at 6. Best case scenario, if you're a Bills fan, you'd love to see them go quarterback here. But again, this is that doomsday scenario. Worst case, let's say that they decide they want to get a quarterback at 17. They take a chance that either Locke or Haskins is there or Daniel Jones, who they're being tied to a lot lately. They try to get them at 17 or maybe move up a little from 17. Or maybe they trade for Josh Rosen. Who knows? But the point being, they're not going to take a quarterback here at 6. The Bills want them to, but they're not going to. We just ran off 4 of the first 5 picks were defensive linemen, so there's already been a run on them. How about offensive line? If you're going to keep Eli Manning and start him for another year, you're going to want a day 1 offensive tackle, right? Well, Juwan Taylor's that guy. Or Jonah Williams, either or. Let's just say for this exercise, because it doesn't really matter, it's Juwan Taylor. He goes 6 to the Giants. Now I got the Jaguars at 7. They just gave Nick Foles a crap load of money. When you give a quarterback a crap load of money, what are 2 things you're going to do? You're going to get him weapons, and you're going to get people who can protect him. Jonah Williams would be a great fit in Jacksonville. He could play left tackle. He can slide inside the guard. That's a great pick. Or if you don't want an offensive lineman, TJ Hawkinson, man. That's your tight end right there. Tell me that wouldn't be a good asset for Nick Foles. Let's just say they take Jonah Williams, okay? Now you still got 1 more pick to go. Detroit's on the clock at 8. This is where, by the way, and I haven't mentioned these names yet, Rashawn Gary having a torn labrum. That hurts the Bills because I don't think they were going to take him anyway. He might have went somewhere maybe as high as 5 to Tampa or in this spot right here to Detroit. He was definitely going to be in play. Montez Sweat, who I have picked to the Bills in a mock draft previously, he could have been a top 5 pick as well. But his heart condition is scaring teams off. Reportedly, as many as 10 teams have crossed him off the board completely. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think he's going to go somewhere in the first round because he's just too talented. But top 10, man, that's risky. I don't see it happening. So no Gary for the Detroit to go after. No Montez Sweat. TJ Hawkinson just makes too much sense. And if by some chance he went to the Jacksonville, then Jonah Williams would make sense. Either way you look at it. Williams and Hawkinson, which are 2 guys that have been tied to the Bills big time, in this worst case scenario, they go 7 and 8. So now you got the Bills. You're on the clock at 9. No Jonah. No TJ. No Juwan Taylor. Ed Oliver's long gone. What do you do? I think there's 3 guys here. And DK Metcalf, by the way, not one of them. I know he had a lot of steam early on as a top 10 pick. Some people thought he'd be great for the Bills. I don't believe that. I never believed it, and I especially don't believe it after signing Beasley and John Brown. I do think they're going to take a receiver, but it's not going to be in the first round. You take a guy at 9, you may as well cut Zay Jones or trade him right away because he becomes your 5th receiver instantly. I just don't see it happening, man. I don't. I think the 3 guys that would be in play at 9 under this worst case scenario is left tackle Andre Dillard, tight end Noah Fant, and defensive tackle Christian Wilkins. Of the 3, I probably would write Wilkins off the easiest. However, that's a mistake. Don't write any of them off, including Christian Wilkins. When this process is all said and done, he can definitely end up being a top 10 pick. But I'm going to write him off because I don't see that happening. I think maybe the Bills will go defensive tackle at 40, maybe come up from 40. Somebody like Jerry Tillery, something like that. They could do a lot of different things with that 40th pick, maybe move up to get a defensive tackle. They definitely need one. And I think they'd be all over Ed Oliver, by the way, if he fell to 9. But he doesn't here. So then we got Dillard, the left tackle, who, by the way, if the Bills, even if they took him at 9, probably doesn't start as a rookie. But even still, he's intriguing and potentially a very good long-term left tackle. Maybe you move Deion Dawkins to the right side, or you slide him at guard, or hell, you slide him out of Buffalo in 2 years if he played like he did last year because he wasn't very good last year. That could be a pick for sure. Don't count that out. Even if he doesn't start as a rookie from day 1, doesn't necessarily matter. But anyway, for me, the guy I would go with in this scenario is definitely Noah Fant. I just think he's a matchup nightmare at tight end. Tyler Kroft could be the Bills' top tight end if need be this year, but I don't think they signed him with the intentions on him being the guy at tight end. I think they like TJ Hawkinson the most, but with him gone, I think Noah Fant could be a matchup nightmare. I keep hearing the Jimmy Graham comparison all the time. That's a weapon I love to see Josh Allen have out there. Stretch that field, open things up for those slot routes even more with Beasley, Zay Jones. You got Foster and Brown, the burners. You got a guy like Noah Fant that could stretch the field. Not a great blocker, but he's a decent blocker and he can improve. So if that happens, quote unquote, doomsday scenario, first and foremost, I think the Bills would probably try to move down a handful of spots because they could probably get at least one of those three guys I mentioned 4 or 5 picks down the road. Best chance of that happening, Denver might want to swap with them to make sure they get their quarterback, that someone doesn't leapfrog them at 10. Or maybe the Giants want to come up from 17, which is kind of low for the Bills to go down and hope to still get one of those guys. There's lots of things that could happen. Maybe Hilliard's a guy that the Bills aren't quite that high on, and a team like Houston might want to come up and get him, or Carolina. They've been linked to the Bills in trade talk, maybe for a tackle. That could happen. They pick 16th, and the Bills could go down. Lots of possibilities, but again, in this case scenario, all the players that were linked to the Bills for the most part are gone, and they can't move back. If that happens, I think the pick's going to be Noah Fant when it's all said and done. What do you think? Who will be the Bills pick at 9 under this, and I'm using air quotes here, worst case scenario? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. Again, thanks for listening. Hit that subscribe button below. Make sure you check out my Moran-Alytics podcast. New shows every Tuesday and Friday. Link for that is in the description below. And I'll start having more of these YouTube audio exclusives going forward.